Being lonely is not an embarrassing thing. I think we live in a time where loneliness is genuinely an epidemic, and then on top of already feeling lonely, I think so many of us can feel genuinely embarrassed at admitting the fact that we feel lonely. I feel like it comes with this weird sense of shame, as if telling someone that you're lonely, confessing that you're lonely is like giving away the fact that you suck and nobody wants to be around you because you suck. And it's like, well, then why would anyone want to be around me if they know this thing about me that makes me like, I don't know, proof that I suck? It's like every room I walk into, I'm somehow like polluting it, and that's why nobody wants to be around me. I don't know, it's very weird. Like, it immediately like shifts this blame onto yourself. Like, you should be ashamed of the fact that you're lonely. I guess that's what it is. It's a feeling of shame, like a deep feeling of shame at the admission that you're unwanted. You know, even if that's not true, it's not that you're unwanted. Even if you might feel that way, or the people around you are making you feel that way, you're not, in a greater sense of the word, unwanted. But it feels like, to admit that you're lonely, to even feel lonely makes you feel unwanted, and to feel unwanted is painful, because we live in a world where, like, it's one thing to spend your time alone, but like of your own volition, and another to feel lonely, and that's when spending your time alone no longer always feels like of your own volition, and often because you feel like unwanted or misunderstood in a way that like can make you feel lonely even in a room full of other people, or a room of people that are like supposed to be people that you're close to, you know. And it's interesting because some of the people that some of the people who have told me that they're like the loneliest people I've ever met, like people who have like consistently like told me that they're like very deeply lonely, are like the most socially popular people. Like, they always have groups and groups of friends, so they're never physically alone, but they're always like telling me that they don't have friends. And that's so interesting to me, because I don't really understand. I think maybe it's because I'm an introvert that I don't really understand spending my time around people that I wouldn't even like call my friend. But I guess like it's also like a symptom of how pervasive it is, like this shame that comes with like at least even looking like you're lonely, you know. Like, there's so much shame around it. Like, these people that I know that have told me that, and they have these like really socially full lives, coming to me telling me they're so lonely and don't have any friends, meanwhile they're going out every weekend with like a whole group of friends. I feel like it's just another symptom of the way that we are afraid to just admit that we're lonely, you know, or afraid to look lonely, as if it's like some really shameful thing, an embarrassing thing. And it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's painful, and that's what's wrong with it, is like the pain that it's causing you. But the actual thing itself is not a shameful or embarrassing thing to be. So many of us will go through periods where we're lonely. I was a very lonely kid. Like, I was an incredibly lonely kid. I feel like it shaped a lot of my identity, a lot of my personality. Like, I'm very introverted, and I think I probably would have always been introverted, but I do think it was like perpetuated by how lonely I was as a kid, like how isolated. I not only grew up in like quite literally a really isolated area. It's a town with like 800 people in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. My like 8th grade class in high school graduating was like 8 people. There's no neighbors there, like literally in the woods. I was genuinely like physically, like I said, like sometimes it's environmental circumstances you can't avoid, isolated. And as a kid, that's like, I don't know, like you want to socialize. Like, it's like a big deal to like, for your development to be social, and I didn't really have that. So I was like physically lonely. And then I got older, and as I started to learn things about myself, like the fact that I was gay in a really homophobic town, in a homophobic family, that loneliness just like skyrocketed. It felt like painful. It's like unbearable and painful, and just like felt like it's gonna consume you from the inside out. Like, I just remember being a kid and like laying in bed all up until I was like left my hometown, and it didn't just go away like overnight. Even when I left and moved somewhere else when I was 18, I remember just like laying in bed at night and feeling like almost like a physical pain. Like, it was like this black fucking thing inside of me that every night was like slowly expanding until it was just gonna like cover me completely. Like, that loneliness hurt. And I think in addition to it, like, maybe the loneliness is not followed or accompanied with actually being physically alone. Mine was too, like, unless it was like direct interactions like at school, or like very rarely did I really even interact with my family at home. I think if it's also like being physically separated from people, the touch starvation that can come with loneliness is like incredibly painful. Like, I think that's something else, like, people feel very ashamed and like embarrassed to admit. Again, it's like this weird admission that nobody would ever want to touch me. There's something wrong with me, and if I tell you that, then you won't want to touch me, or you'll see that there's something wrong with me and I need to hide it. You don't know what it is, because why does no one want to touch me? Why does no one want to be around me? It hurts. When in reality, we just live in a very disconnected world, and I think a lot of people are kind of uncomfortable with touch in different ways, and intimacy. I don't even just mean like sexual intimacy, I just mean like the general different forms of intimacy that comes with in-person interactions. But side effect of that is like physical loneliness and touch starvation, and that's painful. That is literally physically painful. It can hurt. Like, human beings, like, the children, like, as babies, like, need physical touch, like, to help develop. Like, it can actually harm them developmentally to not receive physical touch. And like, as adults, I think it's just a testament to like the way that it is like an intrinsic, like, a need. I guess you won't die, but it can, even if something's not going to kill you like physically, it doesn't mean that it won't like start killing you emotionally to the point where it's like unbearable, you know? And I think I had really bad, probably touch starvation, and was also just incredibly lonely. But I think the thing that's like really difficult about being lonely is like, one, admitting it, you know, that you are lonely, or admitting it to other people, or like, what do we even do in that circumstance? Because I think if you're lonely long enough, you really think that there's something wrong with you, and that if you spend too much time around people, they'll figure out what's wrong with you that is causing you to be lonely, because you're this like weird, there's something majorly wrong with you, you know? So then you like isolate yourself further out of fear of like people finding out what has led you to being like unwanted. So it like you almost further isolate yourself. I also think like if you've been lonely long enough, I don't know, I think that there's an aspect of loneliness, at least for me, that like didn't really have me clinging on to other people, you know? I struggled with relationship issues as I got older, like, and actually like came out of the closet and started dating in different ways. That would make me a bit anxious in relationships, but something that I never really experienced, like, was like my loneliness causing me to cling onto any opportunity I had to like have a close relationship with somebody. Partially because when I grew up, like, I would feel lonely even around people I was friends with, because I knew I was something that I couldn't tell them, because I grew up in a really homophobic area, and I knew that they were likely homophobic, or they were homophobic, and there really wasn't anyone around me who wasn't. So any friendships that I had from the outside, like, I felt completely alone, you know? I also felt like there was something wrong with me. Like, I was going to be genuinely, physically completely alone if I told them, and that's also unbearable in a different way, you know? And so at that point, like, I don't know, dealt with, like, the pain of the loneliness of knowing that if people actually knew me, they'd reject me, and just, like, dealt with the loneliness that came in a room full of people to avoid being lonely, and then out of a room full of people, but that didn't last long. Then I just was preferred to be alone and lonely. But I think it's, like, the idea, I never really, like, clung on to people, because I think when you've been lonely for so long, I think I kind of, like, didn't really know how to connect with people anymore. Like, so much of my childhood had been spent alone, that even if, like, I was, like, in a situation where I should connect with another person, like, emotionally, like, they were confiding in me in a way that was, like an attempt to, like, emotionally connect, I felt like the parts of me that could, like, reach out and connect with another person that would, like, prevent you from feeling alone when you're with them felt kind of mangled. Like, they were all, like, whatever that is, maybe it's a bunch of wires inside you that can, like, connect to another person, felt like all, like, twisted up and mangled, and I didn't really know how to, like, detangle them to, like, hand the person the right wires to connect to themselves, I guess. Like, it just didn't really make sense to me anymore. And then I just kept feeling lonely, even around people that theoretically, like, I could have really given the opportunity to know me, and I knew that they at least, like, the things that once made me lonely in a room, like the fact that I was gay, wouldn't have been the thing to, like, make us disconnect or cause me to be rejected. But I feel like so long of knowing that, like, the things inside of me that would need to be known to feel connected, would have also been the thing that always had me rejected. Like, it just fucked with my ability to, like, genuinely be able to, like, see connection as something that was real or possible or could be authentic for me. And I think I was, like, also, I think when you're lonely and you've been physically alone on top of it, or even if you've been lonely in a group full of people, like, loneliness like causes you to like fall into yourself in a very deep way. You know, you can like disappear into yourself. I think a lot of lonely people have like very intense like maladaptive daydreaming, just like really a lot of overthinking, but it's just because like you're so taken out of the world in front of you. Because when you're lonely, like all you really then at that point have is yourself. Like the thing about like loneliness is you can't really distract from it because it's so to your core painful. I think you like fall so far into yourself that like being able to pull yourself out and into the world to connect with other people, like where you're not alone, or out of like this like almost a bubble you have built of your loneliness, like the ability to like pull yourself out of it to be in the world again where you can connect with people, it's kind of difficult. I guess it's kind of like you've been like sort of like developed with that in you, that like expectation of loneliness, that like I don't know, it changes you. It's like I'm imagining someone growing up and they didn't like deal with like a pervasive loneliness for whatever reason. I'm imagining like a body that's literally built differently, and like a person who has like experienced a lot of really intense prolonged periods of loneliness, probably like I imagine a body built like literally differently, like the ability to connect, the way that they see connection, the way that they like can come outside of themselves and like reach and touch other people is just different. I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm still so far inside my own mind, inside myself, that like things just don't really feel real. I guess the thing I would akin to it is like, what is it called? Derealization? Depersonalization? I don't know. Because it's not those things, but I would say that it's like a weird variation of those feelings, like feeling like the world around me like isn't really real, like I'm not really a part of it. Because I've been like reverted into myself for so long as a side effect to being like disconnected from the world, which caused the loneliness, you know? Being disconnected from the world will cause you to be lonely, and then being lonely for long enough, like that disconnection becomes more and more rooted in you, and everything feels so far away. I don't know. Sometimes I'll like look at the world around me and like people, or I'll be like sitting and like talking to somebody, and I'll just be like sort of like, I'll just realize, I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm actually like connecting with someone, like this is real, this is like a real interaction, like that's supposed to be developing a relationship and a connection. And then I'm like, I don't know, it's still like, I'm like, oh my god, like I'm just not used to it, like so much of my life was not spent that way. And then even when I had the opportunities, I feel like I had a hard time like really taking advantage of them because it didn't really make sense to me anymore. I don't know. I don't even think it's that like socializing isn't something that I necessarily struggled with, but like socializing and also connecting was where I struggled. I could socialize, but I'd left without connection. And I think it's because I did not really, my ability to connect with people was hindered, or feel connected was hindered by like the major disconnection I felt for so long in my life that led me to being lonely. It's like my default. It's just go back to like that loneliness. I think at some point there's a comfort in the things that you've known the long enough, are the things that you know them the longest. There's a comfort in familiarity, and loneliness is not an exception if you know it long enough. There's a comfort that comes with knowing that no one can hurt you if no one means anything to you, and that can cause you to be very lonely, but at least you're protected from the pain of loss of a person you might love or they mean something to you. But that's why like it's so important to like allow yourself to fall like freely and just like ultimately into your emotions and connections with other people, because even if there is a loss, I truly believe it is always worth like the opportunity for connection and love, because it really is what makes life at the very least bearable. It gives you something to hold on to into the world, you know, an emotion, a connection to the world. And when you feel disconnected from the world, it feels unbearable and it feels like pointless. I don't feel anything, so what's the point? But it genuinely is connection whatever way you can find it, a person, a place, a thing. That's how you like anchor yourself into the world, is through connection. And so I think any opportunity you have to build connection, take it and like throw fucking the risk of loss to the wind. I think genuinely like have faith in the fact that this connection will be something that will heal you. Cars just drove by really fast. But connection really is the thing that grounds us and anchors us into this world, and without it, I think we can like start to like float so far outside of our bodies we don't even feel like it matters if we're a part of what's on the ground anymore anyways, because we're not connected to it. So I thought I just heard a dog barking. I listen to music while I do this, so I don't really know what sounds are happening around me. Anyways, There's a car next to me. Yeah, I guess that's it. I was just thinking about loneliness. I have people message me often about something that I did say once, which is that loneliness is not embarrassing. And it's not. You should not be embarrassed. It is not an embarrassing thing to be lonely, and it is not something to be ashamed about. It does not mean that there's anything inherently wrong with you, because there's not anything inherently wrong with you that makes you unwantable or unlikable. You're not like pollution in a room full of people that like causes you to be something that people don't want to talk to or connect with. You will find connections again, and I think with time, like, you learn to find a way through that loneliness, that like wall of loneliness, and reach out and ground yourself through connections to other people, even if it's like genuinely something you have to relearn how to do again or build that skill. It'll happen with time, but I think you have to give yourself the permission to really try, you know, figure out what keeps you maybe connected and to your loneliness. Why is that the thing you feel maybe connected to? Because at some points, I don't know, I felt that way. That was where my connection was. I don't know, but it won't last forever either. There's so many people that you can connect with and that would love to connect with you. I promise you, there's so many people who would love nothing more than to have a connection with a person like you. There's millions, billions of people. And in that, there's probably hundreds and thousands, if not millions, that would love a person exactly like you. And there will be people that you dream of that do exist, because there's billions of people. So there's hope in that. I'm sorry if you're experiencing this pain of loneliness and maybe touch starvation. I know how painful it is. I'm sorry, and I just know it won't last forever, but I know how painful it is, and I'm really sorry for experiencing it for whatever reason that you are right now. And I know that it won't last forever, and I hope that it doesn't last much longer either. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go. But thanks for watching. Bye.